Hey everybody, Garcia here, and today we're going to be jumping aboard the Nautilus with Captain Nemo and taking to the oceans in Nemo's War, 2nd edition. Nemo's War is a solitaire game. There are ways to play with multiple players cooperatively, but really it's a solitaire game in which you are going to be managing quite a few different things, and as I said, traversing the different oceans, sinking ships, digging up treasures, basically having adventures. That's generally what you are doing. The game is sort of telling you a story through a few different cards. You are going to be pursuing pretty much whatever you want in order to gather victory points and, partake in a bunch of different activities and adventures and things like that. I'm going to go ahead and give you a look at the game. I'm not going to go into every little thing, but I'm going to take a hopefully brief overview of everything, and then we'll come on back and I'll tell you what I think of it. Here's what the game looks like, mostly set up and ready to begin. Just to make it clear, I'm going to be glossing over a lot of the rules in the game because there are a lot of little rules. So I'm just going to be giving you the general overturn structure and explaining a couple of minor things as they crop up. I'll try to keep it brief. The players are, of course, attempting to do the best they can in the game. There is not necessarily a hard win and lose rule in this game, though a few things will eliminate you from the game. It's possible that even when you achieve the finale act over here on the side and finish the game with what we would classify as a win, your score is so low that the rules say you've lost anyway, alright? The very first thing you need to do is decide what motive you are going to be playing. This section over here on the board tells you how you score for the many different things in the game, and you decide how to play and what you'll be scoring mostly for based on the motive. So you can do the explore motive, anti-imperialism, you can do the science one, or you can just go to war with this one. So I've already set up the deck for the anti-imperialism motive, and that's this deck over here of adventures. Let me scoot this table over so you can see the edges, and I don't have to keep referencing them. So on this side over here, you are going to see a few pieces of information. You are going to have the adventure deck over here, turn structure that I'll show you on the screen in 1 second. Treasures collected, that's where your motive goes. You are going to have this area down here to collect the ships you have sunk. It's called the tonnage track. And then over here on the side, there would be 4 of these cards face up that are upgrades you might be able to give to your Nautilus. All right. Now let's take a look at the other side of this board. So we scoot this over here. You'll see, of course, the central map, the oceans. Up here are your tracks for Nemo, your crew, and your hull. The notoriety track at the top here, and then all the way over, we've got here the draw pile. When you deal with those, if you pass or fail, they go to these 2. And then down here, the action success table for pretty much all the actions you do in the game. You also got these cubes here that represent uprisings in the world that you are instigating. So let's get back to the middle here and explain, like I said, the general flow of the game. The very first thing, like I said, is selecting your motive. After that, you are off and running. So you're going to have a turn structure that I'm going to walk you through briefly. The very first thing you do is the event phase, in which you draw the top card of the event deck. The very first one at the beginning of the game simply says Act 1. It explains which dice you're going to be rolling and so on. You can just set that aside. And then you draw proper, the first one. It's going to be one of a few different kinds of cards. It'll be a play card, an event card, maybe a card you keep and use later. You would just follow the instructions on here. Let's say I make my attacks, so forth, and I pass. I'll explain how that goes later on. And I put it over here in the pass pile as I explained. Once that's done, and that's my event phase, then I go to the placement phase, in which I'm going to roll 2 white dice at the beginning, as it says in the Act 1 card. Eventually, I'll roll more dice for this phase. I roll these 2, and the 2 dice are going to do a couple of different things. The numbers are going to denote where I put new ships. These ships are unrevealed. They come from this pool here. So in the 2 ocean, as you can see, they have numbers in some of the major oceans. I'm going to put an unrevealed ship there. And then in the 4 ocean, I'm going to put one there. Another thing I have to do with these is the difference between them is how many actions I get for the round. So I get 2 actions. If I roll doubles, it would be what's called a lull turn, and that's a little bit of a different thing. No new ships will, two ships in the same ocean rather will show up, but I don't get any actions unless I saved one, and there might be an uprising as well from the powers that be trying to take down my cubes that I've placed on the board. Those are largely to keep my notoriety in check, as well as victory points. So that's it for the placement phase. And now I do my my turn, in which I'll spend my actions to do different abilities and trigger different things in the game. Just about everything you do in the game is going to require you to roll dice and see how well you do that thing, except for moving around. You can spend your actions and simply move around the different oceans. But just about everything else, searching, resting, repairing, refitting, and insighting, is going to require a die roll. You're going to roll 2 dice and you are going to see how well you do at that thing. So here's what all those actions do in brief, okay? Searching allows you to search in an ocean that has treasure, and you are going to be rolling dice trying to collect these treasure tokens. Some of them have actions, but mostly they are victory points. Resting allows you to recover crew. Repairing allows you to recover hull, and those are both 2 tracks over here. Refitting allows you to buy those upgrades I was talking about by turning in ships that you've specifically chosen to not just sink, but salvage. And then insighting allows you to put these cubes out here on the board, the uprising cubes, and lower your notoriety, which is this track at the top. You can also choose to attack in the game. If you are somewhere that has ships, whether they are revealed or not, they will become revealed if they are not. And that, of course, will involve rolling dice. Some of the ships are warships. They'll attack you first and see if you take any hits, and then you'll attack them back trying to sink it or possibly salvage the ship. But that's basically the way it all flows. Now, one major thing I want to talk about is how you can affect those dice rolls for just about all those actions. You can usually risk one of or more of these multiple tracks, the Nemo, crew, and hull tracks, in order to get a modifier to your die roll. So for example, let's say I am trying to rest and gain crew. Let's say my crew marker is way down here, all right? It's all the way down here. And I'd like to improve that. Well, I'm allowed to, when I'm doing the rest action, exert either Nemo or hull. So let's say I did this. I would exert Nemo. That means I'm going to put it here in between 2 steps. And there's a +2 right there. I'm going to go ahead and roll my dice for this. And I'm going to take a look at what I got. That's 8 plus the 2 is 10. And then I check the chart, and it tells me that if I rolled a 10, I am going to, that's recreation, I'm going to gain 1 crew. Anything I risked, if I passed, I gain back immediately. Anything I risk, if I fail the die roll, is lost. And then I gain my 1 crew, like so. And again, that's the usual flow for all of the different actions. They all tell you what you can risk, what affects the die roll. Having revealed ships sometimes will affect it. Giving up treasure sometimes will give you positive die modifiers, things like that. That's the way it all works. Now let's go ahead and talk about fighting a little bit, all right? So let's say my ship is here. Let's say I'm up here as well. And I'm going to choose to spend my action in order to fight. So I'll spend my 1 action there and fight. There's nothing revealed here, so I'm going to be revealing one when I fight. I have an option here of doing either a bold attack or a stalk attack. Difference is, stalk attack, I can attack 1 ship. I get a built-in +1. And then I'm done, whether I passed or I failed, okay? On the other side, the bold attack, I don't get the +1 modifier, but it's a good way to clear many ships from the board, assuming you're doing well, because after I kill 1, sink it, or salvage it, I can gain 1 notoriety to do it again. I can keep attacking and take out a bunch of ships. But for now, I'm just going to attack 1 there. So stalk attack, I'm going to reach in the bag or wherever you put all of your ships, in a bowl, something like that. And I'm going to draw 1 randomly out. I'm going to replace 1 of these with that ship. And the ship I pulled out is this one right here. It tells you the nationality, notoriety for sinking it, victory points, and how difficult it is to take down. Now I'm going to go ahead and risk something, okay? So I'm going to risk my crew here for +3. If this was a warship, by the way, it would attack me first. I'm going to roll. I got an 8, 9, 10, 11. The difficulty on the ship is 9. So it's sunk. Oh, and I got a +1 from stock attack. So I did just fine. Notoriety, as I said, is 1. So I'm going to kick up the notoriety track here at the top by 1. And then I'm going to take that ship and add it either to the North Atlantic tonnage track. So I would put it right there. And this is going to be for victory points. When I've completed a column, I get 8 victory points. If I, at the end of the game, completed this column, I get 12, and so on. Or I can instead take it and save it over here on the side of the board in order to buy those upgrades. If it's salvage, I turned it into salvage. I'm going to be able to spend them for upgrades later on in the game. So that's how that works, okay? But for now, I'll just say I made it tonnage. So North Atlantic, which is where I sunk it, and it goes there. My notoriety went up 1, and at the end of the game, that ship, it looks like it'll be worth 2 victory points, but taking into account any modifiers that the motive will add. For example, this motive, anti-imperialism, says that for my non-warships, each one is worth +2. So that's not worth 2 points to me at the end of the game. That's worth 4 points to me at the end of the game. One final action I want to talk about is the adventure action. That one includes this deck over here. You're going to be drawing the top card, dealing with that, pass or fail, you know, and then gaining treasure equal to how many treasures are on top of the deck there. You can also draw a look at it, decide not to do it, and bury the card, and you won't get the treasures. They'll stick around there if you do it that way. Most of the actions are 1 or 2 points, as I said. Some of them, when you have a lull turn, are only 1 action, but that's really only going to matter if you didn't spend all your actions anyway. If you saved 1, then you could use some of those actions for a single, point instead of 2. Things like resting, repair, and refitting, and those adventure draws, those are all normally 2, but 1 if there's a lull turn. All right. A couple of other minor points or sort of progression things I want to talk about. As you can see, the notoriety track here is going to be rising. Eventually, when it gets to this spot here, we're going to add these ships to the possibilities to come out onto the board. And then when it gets to this spot, then we'll add those to the board. There's also these ships over here. Those might come into play based on progression, the passage of time in the game. You've also got down there some crew that you begin the game with. These characters are part of your crew, and they have unique powers, things like +2 actions for this character. If I really need +2 actions, I can spend that, and then I flip it over and that character is gone. I've lost the victory points I would get from them, but I have what I needed. Some of them will affect my dice rolls, things like that. So that's what they do there. And defeat will come from a few different places. As I said, the way to win the game, or quote-unquote win the game, is to get to the end of the deck here. Near the bottom, there is a card that simply says Finale. And there's a few, actually. You shuffled in one of them near the bottom of the deck. You'll do that. The game is over. You score up your points and see how well you did. The way you lose is from having one of these 3 tracks, your ship resources go all the way to the bottom. So your crew is, Nemo is broken. His mind is broken. Your crew is all killed. Your ship has been shattered. Your hull. So that could happen. Or you could move the notoriety marker up so far that depending on which motive you're playing, it reaches a spot that simply says, you've become a pariah. The powers that be pool all the resources to simply wipe you out. That's a loss. All right? All right, so that is Nemo's War. This is a game that I have to say kind of grew on me. The first time I played, I thought, wow, this is really fiddly. It's complicated. There's a ton going on. As I've played more, I've come to grips with those things. I've sort of started to appreciate the game for the things it does, not the things it never intended to do. And I am overall pretty happy with it. So right off the bat, let me explain the things I like, or mention the things I like and the things I don't like, and then I'll go into my usual target audience system, okay? So things I liked, all right? The story, the adventures, that stuff is great. Flavor text on everything, the little encounters you have, all of that, the flavor in the game. the characters that are aboard the Nautilus with you, that sort of stuff, you know, that theme that pulls you in, that I really like. The cards, I really like the way that they are illustrated, laid out, the writing, all of that stuff. Risking resources, I like that mechanism a lot. The idea of putting something on the line, hoping to get a good roll, and have those 2, 3, 1 point sometimes make the difference. And you risked it, you made it, you saved that thing. And of course, you know, if you don't, you lose that thing. I like that a lot. And then I like the sandbox nature of the game. I like that the game does not tell you do this thing or do that thing. Now, yes, the motives over here do kind of dictate what you're going to be scoring victory points from. So you probably want to do that thing. If you're going to war, you probably want to sink ships. But you can still do it all. You can do whatever you want to, so it feels like a sandbox game. The things I didn't like. The winning conditions. I don't like that in this game I could win, and then the game tells me I suck. And I did not win, really. I don't like the epilogues. That is this book here. This is tied to the winning conditions, really. They give you this whole book that you look into to see how well you did. So let's say I went to war and my score was not so good. I'm going to read this is for the winning game, the epilogue game. I'm going to read this page here that says failure, and it talks about how badly I did, and it shows me an illustration. It's a very pretty book. It's a large book, and there's just not a whole lot in it. This is nicely produced, but I honestly think they could have probably skipped that beautifully produced book that doesn't add a whole lot to the game. The length of the game, I think it's a little long. I think the middle of the game's a little soft. You know, it's a little mushy. I would love to have a tighter beginning, middle, end in the game, in the arc of the game, and I think it is a little long for that. And then lastly, the multiplayer ideas in the game are just contrived at best. The idea of having this deck of cards here in which you're going to divvy up parts of the game to different people. Like if you're the tactical officer, you have to manage the placement phase, meaning you just do that part. Then normally as a solitaire game, I would just do that. No, so-and-so is the tactical officer. Place the things on the board, please, while I sit here and watch you do that. Okay, we need to risk something. I'm going to risk hull. Wait. It's the tactical officer who risks hull. So if I'm going to move... I'm sorry. Go ahead. You move it. It's pointless. This is just not a good idea. I know they wanted the box to be more than one player. This is a one-player game. That's okay. It's for one. It's a solitaire game. So, everything else. The theme, as I said, great. The aesthetics, very well done. It's a very attractive, well-thought-out game. There's one thing I don't like, which is these gems here that represent where treasure is. They are a random assortment of colors. I had to look this up online. They don't mean anything. They just happen to, when they package this game, pick a random assortment of colors. It would have been nice if they were all the same color, so no one's digging through the rule book trying to figure out why are these different colors, what do they mean, especially in a heady game with a bunch of little rules. Or explained it, or put them all, have them all be the same color. One of the two. Neither one is the case. So that's unfortunate. For a game that has this many little rules, be clear about some component issue like this. But, like I said, overall the game looks good. Like, for example, here is what the original version, first edition of this game looks like. As you can see, night and day compared to this second edition. This is a beautifully produced, illustrated version of the game. The first one is kind of a print and play style game. That's what victory point games did for a very long time. But it is a stunning production, this one. If you were a fan of the original one, then, you're going to love this. And they've changed some of the gameplay as well in really positive ways, I would say. I really like the second one way more than the first edition. Replayability, very high. Different motives, different order of ships coming out, different things you can do. It's a sandbox game. The game length, as I said, is a little long. Ease of play, it's somewhere in the middle. There's a lot going on with the little things you might have a hard time remembering. Thankfully, they have a bunch of charts and whatnot on the board to help you out with that. And lastly, tactics and strategy. I've kind of come around on the idea of, yes, this game has a lot of luck. You are rolling dice for everything. There's a ton of luck. But A, there are a ton of dice rolls. Ideally, that curve evens out. The more dice you roll, the more the law of odds is going to help you out there. And also, you do have a few ways to modify that, to sort of get you out of jams, The idea of saving yourself from a bad roll, you have a few answers for that in the game. They're just a precious commodity, and you have to be careful when you do it. When something goes awry with a bad die roll, can you afford to just let that happen? Or do you need to make sure you pull all the stops and save that one bad roll from happening? If you do it, that's great, and you stopped it. But was that the moment you needed to do that, or should you have held that back, that character from your companions, that special card, whatever, that treasure? Should you have held that back for a moment when it really mattered? That's part of the game. And honestly, it's a game that simulates adventure. There's going to be dice rolling. There's going to be randomness. It has to happen for Nemo and his crew to have grand adventures with highs and lows. So I've come around on that. I think it's a good pseudo-simulation game. So overall, I do like this game. Like I said, it's a very nice production. It's a fun solitaire game. For people who want a solitaire game with a crunchy game length and a lot going on, in it, then this is a solid one. And if you like the theme, forget about it. Just go and get yourself a copy of this game. So this one's going to get a seal of approval from me. I do recommend it again for those of you looking for this kind of experience. I think you're going to like it. And that's pretty much it for me. So Captain Nemo 2nd Edition, seal of approval. I'm Z Garcia, and I'll see you all on the next one.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com.